Imagine a Formula One race, but 18 times longer. Imagine, instead of the Indy 500, the Indy 3000. Imagine racing at over 320 km per hour for 24 straight hours, without breaks. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is a race you've probably heard of. But the story of this iconic endurance race goes back over 100 years. And Le Mans has had its fair share of triumphs and tragedies. So, let's dive into the history of the world's most famous 24-hour race and see how this insane French race became the testing ground for the fastest cars in the universe. Endurance racing. The ultimate test of a driver's will and their engineers' capabilities. And in the early 1900s, it was these hours-long races across Europe that showcased the latest and greatest in automotive technology. But in many of these races, it was still all about speed. Build the fastest car you could and just hope it made it to the end. But in 1923, a small French automobile club called ACO decided they wanted to do something bigger, something that would push the car and driver far beyond the norm. The race would take place in a small town called Le Mans. And this race in Le Mans wasn't the first of its kind, not by any means. Like many endurance races before it, it was a test of endurance. But Le Mans proposed to do what other endurance races of the time couldn't. The focus on pure speed on a single track was over. This race was about innovation. To race in Le Mans, you needed to understand fuel consumption, lead the industry in aerodynamics, have a team of the best drivers with unwavering focus, and, most importantly, was your sports car up to the task? It had to survive 24 straight hours at maximum performance. This certainly wasn't the first 24-hour race, but it was certainly one of the most intriguing. And that was thanks to the circuit that ACO chose for the race, the Circuit de la Sarthe. In its original form, the circuit was essentially a 17.2 kilometers, 10.725 miles triangle. But even calling it a circuit was generous. The track layout utilized public roads, took you in and out of the nearest town, then onto unpaved and stone roads before returning to a dedicated track. It was dangerous, challenging, a track that only the most fearless drivers could endure. And instead of having a defined distance or number of laps, the winner would be the one who covered the greatest distance in the 24-hour period. Honestly, it seemed absurd, a torture chamber for automotive masochists. But in that inaugural race in 1923, 33 participants willingly stepped up, ready to race. None of the entries were individual drivers, they were all manufacturer teams, reinforcing that this race was seen as a challenge of quality and craftsmanship. The cars were divided into classes: small engines, medium engines, large engines, and cars with very large engines. The largest engine in the group was the Excelsior with a 5.3L inline-six, a sports car manufactured in Belgium. And these weren't just brute muscle cars, not at all. They were some of the first to put roll bars on their cars, because, again, Le Mans was about innovation. Then there was Lorraine Dietrich, a French company that had a streamlined torpedo-bodied car reaching an impressive speed of 145 km per hour. Of course, there were also the well-established 2.1L Delahaye in the race. There was also a British entry, a privately owned Bentley that was publicly supported by Bentley itself. Then there was Ford through Charles Montier, the Ford agent in France, competing in a unique Model T. But alongside the big names of Ford and Bentley were lesser-known small manufacturers like Bugatti, yes, the same Bugatti, but long before its rise to fame. They entered two Bugatti T22 Brescia cars in the small engine class. So, an absolutely iconic lineup of automobiles, but again, this was Le Mans, so the uniqueness didn't end there. Even the race start was different from what anyone was accustomed to. You didn't begin this race in your car, waiting for the green lights to go down. And there was no rolling start, no grid lineup. No. The drivers started the race outside their vehicles on the other side of the track. When it was time to race, you had to run across the track and get into your car, fasten your seatbelt, and pull ahead of the other competitors who were in a panic and trying to do the same thing. It was an absolutely epic way to add drama and excitement right from the start, and it was an integral part of the 24 hours of Le Mans until in just a few years, every driver and manufacturer who heard of Le Mans was fighting to get on the starting grid. But when it came to those early years, no one was as infamous as the Bentley Boys. The Bentley Boys were just a group of wealthy British car enthusiasts who, well, raced their Bentleys everywhere and anywhere in the 1920s. One particular Bentley boy, Joel Wolf Barnato, was so rich that he ended up acquiring Bentley itself. And the craziness is that they had the speed to back it up and race at Le Mans. In 1936, the race was cancelled due to strikes in France. In 1939, the race entered a 10-year hiatus due to World War II. But all of this only made the return in 1949 even more glorious. Even the President of France was present, along with 180,000 other spectators. And they barely knew that this was the day they would witness the birth of a Le Mans legend. Because 1949 was the year the prancing horse came to life. Ferrari, in its first race. The ACO had already made some significant revisions to the circuit since its inaugural race. They paved some of the most dangerous sections of the road, shortened the overall track to bypass the town instead of going through it, and other parts of the course were redirected away from houses, widening the streets to allow a bit more breathing room. The ACO did what it deemed sufficient to make this extremely dangerous race as safe as possible, or as least dangerous as possible. That is the right way to put it. But what the ACO didn't do, along with the rest, was built to go against the likes of Ferrari, and their new 735 LM, Jaguar with its D-Type racers, Maserati with its 300S, Aston Martin with its DB3S. And of course, Porsche, who had just won its class the previous year. Stuttgart returned this year with multiple platforms to prove its dominance. This year's edition of Le Mans had all the ingredients for a monumental race. And it was, but for the worst reasons. 2.5 hours into the race, Mike Hawthorne in his Jaguar was in front of Lance Macklin. Leveille's car flew over Macklin's car and he died instantly. But Leveille's Mercedes went straight into the spectators, flipping several times over more than 80 meters. The scene is described by multiple witnesses with grave details. Parts of the car flew, cutting spectators and running over others. Over 80 people died, with many others injured. And perhaps the most unbelievable part of it all? The race continued. Mercedes was distraught with what happened and said they couldn't continue. And furthermore, the image of a German car causing such destruction wasn't exactly the best. Blame was thrown in all directions after the race. Did the ACO create unsafe racing conditions? There wasn't even a designated deceleration lane before entering the pits. Or was it Hawthorne and Jaguar's fault for their late entry into the pits? Or did Macklin simply lose focus and control when swerving across the track to avoid Hawthorne? And on top of all that, why didn't the race stop? The ACO argued that stopping the race would cause spectators to block the entry roads for emergency vehicles. But surely there were private means of transporting the injured? The truth is, the ACO wanted to prevent another accident from happening again. Stands were demolished and relocated. More barriers were installed, safer pit stop rules, and so on. But the damage caused by the 1955 race had already been done. Many groups called for the ban of car racing events. Switzerland banned road racing events after 1955. A ban that would last for 67 years until 2022. It wouldn't be until the 1960s that the race would start to return to its former glory. And that's thanks to Ford and Ferrari. Ford was rapidly expanding, and the rest is history. The GT40S finished first, second, and third in the 1966 24 Hours of Le Mans. Ferrari didn't even finish the race. But once the dust settled and Ford and Ferrari settled their differences, it was Porsche who decided to take the crown from Ford. Le Mans was basically Porsche's second home. They hadn't lost a single race since 1951, and for 19 years, they fought on that French circuit until 1970 when they clinched their first overall victory at Le Mans in the legendary 917K, finally beating the GT40. But the Porsche story didn't end there. The race had changed once again. The standing start was replaced by a much safer rolling start. And what about the cars themselves? Production cars were demoted to a lower class, and the top class was now reserved for dedicated race cars. And it was in this class that Porsche excelled. The 917K not only took the overall victory in 1970 but won again in 1971. And then, in 1976, Porsche won again with the first turbocharged prototype to win the race, the Porsche 936. They won again in 77 and a third time in 81. And it still wasn't the end for Porsche, as the Tertre Rouge corner, known for its sharp right turn, was modified to a more suitable double apex corner. In 1982, when Porsche won again, it would be the last time a two-driver team would compete in the race. All future winning teams would have 3 drivers. Then, in 1986, with cars becoming much faster, the Mulsanne corner was redesigned. It became a chicane at the junction, in an attempt to reduce accidents. In 1987, the entry speed into the Dunlop Bridge was deemed too high. And there came Porsche again, winning in 86, 87, and again in 88 and 89. Then Jaguar took back the victory in 1990. Although the course had dramatically changed once again. The FIA had rules on the maximum length of straights, and the Mulsanne straight was now considered too long, too fast. Cars like the Welter Meunier P87 were reaching 403 km/h on the straight. We're talking about 1988. So it was inevitable that 2 chicanes were added to the straight. Arguably the biggest change in the history of the circuit. In 1991, Mazda Speed entered 3 cars in the 24-hour race. And at the last moment, when the Mercedes C11 broke down, the Mazda 787B took the lead over Jaguar. Mazda, a true underdog in that race, became the first Japanese team to win at Le Mans, and also the first and only non-piston engine car to win. But the 787B never raced at Le Mans again, as the Group C cars were being replaced by the new 3.5-litre World Sports Car Championship class, which banned Wankel rotaries from competition. It was a big blow for Mazda, but came at a time when racing around the world was in decline. Many teams dropped out or cut budgets. So when the McLaren F1 won in 1995, the victory was somewhat overshadowed. McLaren didn't enter as a manufacturer, but BMW did, as the F1 GTR used a BMW engine. And by 1996, all major automotive manufacturers realized the loophole and were entering newly built supercars to compete at Le Mans. Ferrari had the F40 LM and GTE. Porsche had the 911 GT2S, Jaguar, with their XJ220, Honda, with the NSX GT1, Toyota Supra GT LMs, and Nissan, with the Skyline GTR LMs. It was incredible. All these unique, production-based supercars fighting for 24 straight hours at the Circuit de la Sarthe. BMW won in 1999, their first and only victory to this day. Meanwhile, Mercedes was forced to withdraw after the disaster of the CLR GT1 in 1999. And from there, Le Mans became Audi's domain. From 2000 to 2003, Audi won every year. In 2003, even Bentley won, but it was practically an Audi, as it used the Audi engine, team, and drivers. Audi and Le Mans were becoming synonymous. Even Cadillac dropped out. And with that, competition in the top class at Le Mans became non-existent. Audi won again in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. Yes, Audi was winning so much with the R8 that it got bored and challenged itself with the diesel-powered R10 prototype. And after that TDI race car won, they introduced the R18 e-tron, an amazing hybrid, at a time when hybrids were not even thought of. Audi was changing the game. But after dominating for so long, in 2014 Audi finally found a worthy rival in its home country, Porsche, which returned not with a new high-powered gas guzzler but rather with another hybrid, the 919. And of course, the first name in hybrids, Toyota, had to make an appearance with its TS040 prototype. Even Nissan returned with the GTR LM Nismo, a front-wheel drive V6 turbocharged hybrid. The grid was finally looking more and more like a manufacturer battle once again. And just like in the 80s, Porsche found its way to the top, winning in 2015, 16, and 17 with the Porsche 919 hybrid. But that 2016 victory was different. On the last lap's final turn, the Toyota TS050 lost all power. 37 minutes running like an absolute top. But it was those last 3 minutes that mattered the most. The 919 passed the broken Toyota, and Porsche won the race. It was thrilling. But Toyota, for the first time at Le Mans, caught a glimpse of what it felt like to win. And while they returned the following year, it wasn't until 2018 that they were truly in pursuit of war. The drivers were all superstars in their own right. In the 2018 race, the trio of Sebastian Buemi, Kazuki Nakajima, and Fernando Alonso broke the fastest lap record, with an average speed of 252 km/h, Toyota record that still stands today. Toyota dominated Le Mans in the following years. In fact, Toyota's Gazoo racing team hasn't lost the endurance race since their victory in 2018. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. All won by the TS050 and GR010 hybrids. They are up there with the Ferrari, Porsche, and Audi favorites when it comes to wins. But fans argue that Toyota hasn't seen any real competition. To really win those victories, it takes serious effort for cars and drivers to last 24 hours in a full-on race. However, competition is always good for the sport, and that's something the WEC was clearly missing. But that's about to change. The 101st edition of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the ultimate global endurance automotive spectacle, is gearing up to be a good one. Scheduled for June 10th, the race is already sold out with over 300,000 spectators expected to attend. And why is the 2023 race so important? Well, it's because Toyota won't be racing alone. The long-standing LMP1 class is gone, replaced by the new hypercar class starting from 2021. And Porsche, Cadillac, Peugeot, Ferrari, and more are all ready to compete in this new top class. And with such fierce competition, many believe this will be the best Le Mans in years. Porsche is making a comeback with a new LMDH, Le Mans Daytona hybrid, race car. This new hybrid prototype is based on an LMP2 car chassis, with a total power output of around 670 horsepower. The car is being developed by Penske, which has a successful track record in endurance racing. Cadillac is also entering with its own LMDH, the Deep IV.R, which has been a powerhouse in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship Series in America. The car will be built in collaboration with Dallara and is expected to be a strong contender. Peugeot is bringing its 9x8 hypercar, a non-hybrid prototype that promises to bring some variety to the field. The car lacks a rear wing and uses advanced aerodynamics to maximize efficiency and speed. And Ferrari, one of the most successful Le Mans brands, is returning to the top class for the first time in many years with its new LMH, Le Mans Hypercar, race car. The car, which has not yet been revealed to the public, promises to be a formidable machine. Each of these manufacturers is bringing something unique to the track, and that's what makes the 2023 Sierra Leone and Leone's Mans race so exciting. With such variety and high-level competitors, it seems that the race could be one of the most competitive in recent years. And with each team striving to prove their worth, we can be sure there will be plenty of action with every lap. I'm looking forward to seeing what unfolds. I'm sure it will be a race for the history books. And if you're a passionate automotive enthusiast and want to discover the future of engines, I'll suggest a video here on the channel, where the pioneer in hybrid engines expresses disbelief in what they're choosing for the future, even developing their own engine using a fuel that is very abundant in the world. Are you curious and want to find out more about it? Then click on the video on your screen and continue with me here at Cruise Control. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because I post videos every day. I'll see you in the next one.